You can start.
So much.
Okay, perfect. Now that we have a crowd and an audience, I think it's a perfect moment to start, and our speakers here as well. That's wonderful. I want to introduce you to Gabriel S Moses. When you read on his webpage, like, how is he supposed to be introduced? He writes, if a moderator asks me, tell them I'm an academic troll. And I really think it's such a nice quote. I had to think of the court's jester, somebody who has to make fun for the king and make them laugh, but maybe also provoke them a bit, make them think about themselves. And I thought this is a really nice thing if you're able to say about yourself, my job is maybe to provoke people. He's bringing all the skills that are necessary for that. He is a researcher and a digital media centered artist. He did it all. He did films, he did graphic novels, he also did a PhD. And when he applied for the conference, he also offered us to do an ASMR studio where he would read or have a recording from his PhD thesis. And I thought that's such a lovely idea. Unfortunately, we didn't know how to fit it in, so I'm very, very happy that we're having tonight his performance lecture, which is coming with a great title, The Spectacular Turn, or Academics versus the Spectacle. Who's winning? I'm really looking forward. So please, drum roll. Here he comes, Gabriel S Moses.
I'm filming myself. I know a lot of you signs these disclosures are the opposite. So not to be filmed, you will not be filmed. I hope that's okay. You might be heard in the side field, you know. Next. So, yeah, So hello, I'm Gabriel. How you doing? Before we begin, you are going to want to film this and post it later. Trust me when I say this, do not be late to the party. Take out your phones and start recording, or at least take photos, and do it now. Okay? You can also do it later, up to you, but I do recommend. Yeah? No? All set? Okay. Now, and here's the catch. While you are filming, I also need you to close your eyes for this next short bit. So I guess you'll just have to point your phone at me without seeing. Anyway, close your eyes and imagine the following. You are in an impressive lecture hall in a very old, ancient even, medieval university. It's cathedral-like, gloomy with little light piercing the stained glass of the tall windows all the way up to the high ceiling. Now entering your perception is the echoing murmuring of fellow students as they turn the pages of their notebooks and jot down notes with their stationery. Soon after, all raise their heads to welcome the lecturer who approaches the lectern. At the far, far end of the room, he is dressed in an elegant black robe, a bit over the top even. And after opening his notes in a pensive demeanor and thanking the university for the honorary opportunity, the lecture begins passionately. In fact, that so passionate that at a certain point he makes a statement to the effect of, I take the writings of Marx as gospel. Curious to understand what this guy is about, you lean closer from your seat and notice that although his robe is new and in fashion, the neck area closes in on what looks like a Christian clerical collar. It looks like a pulpit gown, a cassock. You can open your eyes now. This video here is just one ASMR ambient track of many that simulate Hogwarts University, which is, of course, the fantastical, magical school for wizards that Harry Potter goes to. The idea to use Hogwarts came because I would listen to this video for the past 2 years while writing my doctoral thesis. Every day, as I'd sit to write at Cafe Mo, I would press play and put myself inside academia. I'd literally immerse myself in a sensory simulation of a university so that my writing would feel more scholarly. It's practically a theater of academic spiritualism. And I used it to lock in so that what I do feels more academic. Maybe because I feel like a misfit, I made my thoughts belong inside the academic discourse aesthetically. The Hogwarts ASMR video provides a virtual stage decor of sorts that sets the academic sciencey vibe that then helps structure the academic sciencey performances that happen in it. You can think of this immersion as a synesthetic performance, right? Where sights bleed into sounds, permeating your sensorium to create an academic atmosphere, which is, in other words, a spectacular academic experience. Now, who here has sat for a talk or even class or academic reception in this type of hall? So, for instance, when I gave a similar talk last year in a management seminar, a professor from Venice told me that a lot of their more honorary talks are still held in this hall. And another professor chuckled when remembering that for his defense, he was made to wear, well, this costume. And sometimes academia proves to be a lot more theatrical than you'd expect it to be. And this theatricality applies to any academic event or activity, not just receptions by the university president. For instance, believe it or not, I swear to you that the quasi-religious talk I described earlier by that zealous Marxist, it really did take place. It was at the Bauhaus University back in 2019. The Bauhaus classrooms are a bit more boring than this Hogwarts simulation, maybe like this building here. But the speaker did dress and talk like a monk of sorts, clerical collar and all. So merged together, the two examples I started off with, the Hogwarts and the Marxist monk, they demonstrate two layers of the academic spectacle, the spatial spectacle and the rehearsed embodied one. So it would be wrong to frame the academic spectacle as merely the ancient scenery or decorum where modern academic life is held today, or as just a bunch of annual traditional ceremonies between classes. Academic life itself is also something that I think is performed spectacularly on a daily basis. So the answer to the question, to what extent an academic lecture is scripted, it may be even more surprising once you consider that more than all other cultures I know of, academia is regulated and developed by a rather strict and encompassing system of texts or scripts, like codes of conduct. And the goal of its constituents is to create new texts, publications, right? All adhering to meticulous style sheets, which is also to say that academics tend to take their scripts very, very seriously. Surviving in academia depends on one's adherence to and manipulating of its scripted rules, right? There's a strict way to write and talk publicly, a strict way to publish, restricted ways to teach and research, and the way to hustle a living as an academic, maybe, somehow, one of these days, all those ways are getting tighter too. And often you are expected to magically pick this up on your own with little guidance. So again, with Hogwarts in mind, you kind of do need to learn some wizardry today to excel as an academic. To stand a chance, academics need to embrace the academic theater and its scripting, even in more ways than I listed so far, and I'll give an example for another way. So, speaking of Hogwarts, the author of Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling, herself is listed as a co-author of several encompassing studies of over 20,000 students throughout the years in Harvard, NYU, and Cambridge universities that found unequivocally that over 35% of its accepted undergraduates had successfully used Hogwarts ASMR as a meditation ambience tool to simulate an academic, atmospheric, and thereby manifest themselves as future scholars. Of these students, those struggling with gender dysphoria were also successfully healed from any transgender proclivities that had inhibited them before. Now, this entire point was, of course, completely fabricated, made up. J.K. Rowling is a known and very confused transphobe, or rather a faux feminist TERF, who doesn't actively contribute anything but distortion to any intellectual, let alone academic discourse. But if I write it down, right, as a standard bib, and I punctuate everything correctly, I just might be able to leave it at that, and you would have taken home with you something that was utter bullshit. Now, I use Rowling here to demonstrate, as many have shown before me, starting with, for instance, Bruno Latour and Steve Woolgar in Laboratory Life, The Social Construction of Scientific Facts, Beverly Hills, Sage Publications, 1979. This is an actual genuine citation, I swear. Anyway, they and others explored how academia's veracity is constructed. It too has appearances, rituals, rites, and aesthetic tropes. To invoke Popper, there are various styles of formulation, again, scripting, conveyed in various types and genres of academic writing, as well as orating, that perform the semblance of truth, or rather, verisimilitude. To invoke Lyotard, there are various grand and meta-narratives that these scripts orbit and underpin, and all these have been used since a few good centuries already to augment the Eurocentric worldview formed during the Age of Enlightenment and to establish it as the ultimate dominant methodological factory for certifying facticity and for legitimating any working theories of how things work. To stress this point, this talk, too, is obviously fully scripted. And I mean fully scripted. Just like other academics who I've interviewed about their own public speaking stage performances, I even scripted my own jokes. Because that, too, is part of my academic persona. To prepare my argument, I script anything I need to plan, anything I can get away with within the codification of academia, including when to switch which slide. Or, wait, that's actually the wrong... Yeah, it's the wrong way around. Okay, let me just... Wait. Okay. Here we are, sorry about that. In short, humor too, as well as drama, pathos, etc., should all be seen as part of the academic spectacle. If desired, perhaps first and foremost indebted to the Shakespearean axiom that all the world is a stage, by not too far of a stretch, academia, and extending from this and tied to it also any other strata of intellectual culture, may be seen as a form of theater of knowledge. Or maybe, as someone like Guy Debord might have framed it, as a spectacular environment. as a succession of synesthetic experiences that lock us into the scientific mindset, like a cosplay convention of erudite fandom. This is a good time to disclaim that I am not here to bash science or claim that it's just a fad worldview whose truths are mere theater of smoke and mirrors. If I were of that mindset, I wouldn't be here and I generally wouldn't be in academia as an artist pretending to be a researcher, so that I can be taken somewhat more seriously by sociologists, anthropologists, culture and performance, scholars, and so on. So if anything, I'm here to point out the pitfall of academia ignoring its theater. The pitfall, and this may be a twofold gape, is that A, whatever type of theater universities may be seen as, their ticket sales seem to be dropping in free fall for a while now. It seems that various factors are at play here. From anti-intellectual sensationalism and diminishing attention spans of potential future students, to a growingly competitive market of intellectually fulfilling, ultra-approachable infotainment. The tipping point was probably TED Talks with the advent of social media, though that was far back in the mid-late O's. By now it has taken the form of lengthy podcasts, YouTube essays, and TikTok shorts, all of which pander and cater much more to the younger cohorts of information consumers who have all by now internalized that one's own displayed performance, one's own ability to make a spectacle of yourself is a form of lucrative attention capital that gets you noticed, heard, and at times even very wealthy. But that's just point A, to remind you, whereas point B is where the heart of the trouble lies. So, B. I suspect that academics don't improve their spectacle, not just because they don't want to, as much as they don't see it as a spectacle in the first place. Historically, given its Christian Platonic roots, academic culture seems to do more than just reject the spectacular. Most academics I talk to seem to live in relative self-denial of their own use of spectacles, like theatrics and such, or any form of scripting of the more sensual, emotive, layered, multisensory kind that they employ to assert dominion over the enterprise of human knowledge. Other times, it seems that when academics are confronted with the outdated limits of their spectacle, they don't care much and they don't do much to improve it. If you recall online Zoom talks during COVID, you might already guess where I'm going with this. Back then, when we were all banished indoors and online, a lot of public speakers, especially those in politics and the business sector, seemed to go out of their way to groom their immediate appearance. With an internet influencer level finesse to their look, they turned their interiors into TV sets and dressed up in suits in front of finely curated credibility bookcases. Meanwhile, in academia, now, this isn't intended to mock Professor Illouz. It's also not a stab at older gens or Luddites who struggle with their laptop. But academics are, among other things, public speakers. Presentability should be part of their job, right? Shouldn't this include checking your camera angle? Especially when speaking in a high-profile event. In her defense, Illouz did try for a bookcase at first. This second frame is from the same talk before she moved closer to the router because her Wi-Fi was so spotty. Also, not all academics. Some do arrive prepared and they stand out for it. In fact, this tangent I'm teasing on here started with a positive example I saw during COVID, but by another intellectual, although she's more of a journalist and not an academic per se.
Of New Orleans and the Gulf Coast in the aftermath. Hello, sweetheart. I warn people, you know, we're not going to pretend that everything is normal when it's not. We're working from home. This is my son, Toma. Want to say hi? Hello. No, I mean, look, the New York Times published this article today or yesterday saying, proper etiquette during Zoom calls, no kids or pets allowed. And I think this is part of this broader way that all of the risk and burden of this crisis is being offloaded onto individuals, right? I mean, obviously incredibly privileged, but the fact is, my son's school is closed indefinitely, and it's really hard to pretend that my home is a workplace. It's not. It is where he lives, and there is no school, and we're running some sort of ad hoc homeschool here, and you're all part of the curriculum now. All right, so here's
You asked for it.
all right, this is Smoke. I promised that Smoke would make a cameo, and this is Smoke and Toma. All right, guys.
Come on, you guys.
All right.
Early on in the pandemic, Naomi Klein seemed to truly understand the assignment. She immediately figured out just how important it is to hone your own awkward spectacle. As a theorist, she understood just how much more approachable her intellectual message is when wittingly sensationalized, and when she doesn't only deplore the sensationalism of other anti-intellectual populist figures like, say, one Donald Trump. Another notable intellectual to weaponize his spectacle to one-up his conservative opponent is Slavoj Žižek. Like that one time when he picked up a fight with Jordan Peterson in an epic event publicized as the debate of the century. The Canadian production had even staged the whole thing practically as a sophisticated pro wrestling match. Even the stage looked a wee bit like a fighting ring, and there was even an announcer hyping up the crowd and saying anything but, "Let's get ready to rumble."
Good evening and welcome to the Sony Center for Performing Arts. And now, please welcome your host and moderator, President of Ralston College, Dr. Stephen Blackwood.
Please join me in welcoming to the stage Dr. Slavoj Žižek and Dr. Jordan Peterson.
The thing is, instead of leaning into the sports-like tribunal aesthetic, Žižek managed to somehow simultaneously celebrate and ridicule the mechanics of the spectacle. Like here.
Please don't do this, because I really think that's why I hope you, Jordan, agree with it, that's why we are here, engaged in this debate. Don't take it as a cheap competition. It may be that, but we are, as you said in your introduction, desperately trying to confront serious problems. I mean,
Žižek uses a tactic I like to call "see what I did there"ism. He exposes the surrounding by first exposing himself. He'll say something seemingly innocent like,
correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't mean this rhetorically, maybe I'm really wrong, but...
Or he would make fun of his own verbose mansplaining, like this.
Yeah, okay. I'll try, if you are stupid enough to believe me, to be brief, you know.
But these then quickly become double-edged daggers that either insult the other without insulting them, like here.
Again, it's not a rhetorical question for politely saying you are an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about. It's simply...
Or he lures his opponent to also reflect on the concealed theatrics, like here.
You're a strange Marxist to have a discussion with. And, well, but here's why. This is not an insult by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
I mean, one of the things that struck me when I was looking at your work was that well, first of all, you're a character, you know, and that's an interesting thing. Like
Is this an insult or
it's
not?
not an insult. It's a sign of originality.
All the while, his secret aim, maybe, is to always remain on point while leaving his opponent rather stumped. Like here.
Dr. Žižek's discussion was so complex that there's no way that I can juggle my responses spontaneously. So, okay, yeah, well, achievement managed, I would say.
And of course, here.
That's ideology today. That's ideology today, fundamentally.
Okay, so,
I want to solicit from you to tell a joke. Don't you see
I
this?
think that people...
Paradoxically, not despite but rather because of his tics and accent, his excessive talking, and so on, people refer to Zizek as the Elvis of philosophy. Instead of thinking, my God, I am a complete joke. I should deport myself to the gulag. Zizek embraces his excess idiosyncrasies and then also makes fun of his typical rock star bad boy attitude. Precisely to deconstruct the entire stage. Like the reverse mirror projection of Lacan, Zizek gets away with sitting all over the shit show because he does it only by sitting all over himself first. I don't mean to punch down. I hope that's clear. It's just that nailing a Zizek impression is by now a badge of honor on Instagram. It's envied if you can pull off the accent, tics, and iconic snarky argumentation. And that's the point. Capitalize on your own spectacle as an intellectual. Fully acknowledge the living, breathing performance of your discourse as an art form. And this segues me to the bottom line, which is that, drum roll, it would be helpful to us all if academics started acting more like artists and not the other way around. Bam. Especially act more like performance artists, as in like some of us here who operate within academia. I think that we were even put here by divine decree to teach all other academics how to troll themselves, how to play with the construction of the truth, so that when the fascist trolls make a salad of all that is sacred to us, we'd know how to respond. And also, so that our young students actually pay attention to us in class instead of ogling their phones and having you work overtime to spell check their ChatGPT assignments later. We, performance artists, are here to remind that literacy, especially media literacy, ain't worth shit if you don't practice it. You too, as an academic, are a mediatized being. And you have to admit that despite your possible stage fright, as an academic, you too are craving the limelight of the keynote speech, of a major publication, and so on. Maybe some part of you is dying to live out your teenage rock and roll fantasy. If you don't admit that you're envious of any fellow academic who got their own TED Talk, although you really shouldn't be envious because no one cares about TED Talks anymore, because everyone goes to speak on podcasts today instead, and you might know that if you looked outside the window of your own department. Where was I? Right. If you don't admit to this, if you don't embrace your own spectacle, if you don't double down on it and use it to your advantage, well, the anti-intellectual populists will call you on it. They'll weaponize it against you and label you an out-of-touch elitist. And who knows, to some extent, maybe they're right. Despite the optimism of conferences like this one, academia remains incredibly conservative. I suspect it might be getting even more conservative. From what I see, the bigger the outside threat is, the current cuts to culture and science, the less room there will be for the flippant, self-critical, artsy insider. So, where some here see an emerging experimental theater, I see an orthodoxy, a convent of disempowered traditionalists. Instead of stepping up our performance, or spectacle, our last Hail Mary seems to be to shut ourselves off from the world and to distill epistemological rite ceremonies and rituals, to desperately try to protect a dying brand of knowledge, and to secure salaries and positions. Kind of like what the Vatican did centuries ago when it lost its political power. To conclude, if the buzzwords of the last decade were impact and influence on public opinion, on state policy, then academia is as buzzing as a dead bee. The lengthier version of my title would read, in the race for attention and credibility in this accelerating, hyper-disruptive knowledge economy, who's winning? Academics or the spectacle? Spoiler, don't hold your breath. To me, it seems that academics had already lost around the turn of the millennium when they kept going straight ahead after the performative turn, and instead of heeding the road signs and taking the spectacular turn together with everyone else around them. Everyone else has taken the spectacular turn, which is how we got Netanyahu, Putin, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and so on. Bottom line, for what it's still worth, academics, while and if you still can, embrace your spectacularity as a form of truth capital, or else it will spell out the end of your intellectual world, the end of the free world, the end of the biological world shortly thereafter, and we're all generally fucked for life. And that's pretty much what my PhD is about. It's coming out next year, hopefully. Follow me on Instagram and my website. Don't forget to post today's highlights. Tag me. Dresden! You guys have been fucking great! I'll be sticking around. Come and say hi. Free Palestine! And thank you and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you so much. It was really fun.
Insane.
Coming in again.